Hi there, welcome to the webinar series created by Hill. We're here today to talk about everything there is to know about interior design. My name's Sarah Turpin, I'm Regional Sales Manager here at Hill, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Helen Fuster and Jessica Bell from Suna Interior Design. Hi ladies. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Good, good. Helen is the director and owner of Suna, and Jessica is our interior designer and has done some wonderful designs for us here at Hill. But we're here to talk today about everything there is to do with interior design in your home, in our homes, in show homes. Get great ideas. We're going to go through some information about working from home, and that's something that I think we're all being affected by at the moment. So we've got a piece on that. We're going to talk a little bit about the making the most of extra space. That might be, a large amount of space or a small amount of space. There's still weird and wonderful different ideas. We are also going to talk about being bold and not being afraid to use bold ideas and bold colours and different inspirations. And then we're going to talk a little bit about where the inspiration came from and how you, as an end user, would maybe come up with those ideas. We will get an opportunity to ask questions at the end, so please do send in your questions as you go. You can choose the Q&A function. Feel free to just fire your questions off, and hopefully we'll get to you at the end. So with that, let's kick off. So we are talking about working from home. Now, obviously, that's something, like I said, is something that's affecting all of us at the moment. At some point, I think everybody's had to work from home. But give us some inspirational ideas. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so as you just said, the working from home is probably the most relevant to everyone at the moment. And these are 4 examples of separate study rooms that we've done in show homes. So top left, for example, is a great way if you've got a really compact small space and you've got a great budget to do lovely, beautiful built-in joinery, which makes the most, can hide away little files in all the cabinetry, you've got all the shelving that you can add in, and it really utilizes the space that you've got available. The bottom left and the top right are 2 examples using the same sort of wall-to-wall desk function here. So as you can see, they're the same desks themselves, but they're both in completely different style rooms. So the top right is a lot more luxurious with those sort of brassy tones coming through and the lovely wall mural creating a window effect on the end wall there. And then the bottom left is a lot more sort of family friendly. So you can imagine, kids using the corkboard wall for their homework and like pinning up little school essays that they've got to do. And that, mum can be doing her work from home next to them, or dad, or older brother or sister. So it's a slightly more fun, tactile way of having an office space. And then bottom right is actually a study that we've recently done for you at Davenport at Mosaics. So this one has a beautiful wall mural that sort of wraps around, you can't see it there, but it sort of wraps around the whole room and creates this really beautiful focal point to the study here. And then you can see the little like touches of blue sort of like coming through in little details that really sort of like pull that room across and round.
And these are all really, these are for great functional spaces, and it's nice to sort of get that double aspect as well when you're sort of, if you've got multiple people working from home at the same time. But these are designated spaces, and of course, you might not have a separate room that you can actually address. So talk us through what you've done here.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of people in the last year have had to figure out. How on earth do I find this space in my house? And, if you have a private room that you can close the door on, then fantastic. And obviously Jess has just spoken to you about how you can kind of create that look and feel. But these are examples of where you maybe don't have that much space and you're having to maybe think about how you get the dual function into an environment. So some different ideas here. I think the top left image is showing a kind of maybe teenage or young girl's room, where it's obviously her bedroom, and you don't necessarily want her bedroom to feel like she's got this desk workspace in. But as a teenager or a child, you have homework to do, so to have a desk function or a work function is really helpful. But you can see by the look in terms of how we've styled it and dressed it, it's about giving you that function. You've got the desk space, you've got the storage, but it also doubles up as a kind of a dressing area or clothes storage. And with the lights and the wallpaper, it can still have that kind of fun, playful, and very much like a bedroom space. The top right image is showing how you can try and build in that work function in a way that maybe feels quite discreet in the room. So this was a 1-bedroom flat. There wasn't anywhere else for the work function to go. Actually fairly generous living space. And you see there's that kind of kink in the wall there that created that natural recess. So you couldn't put the sofa against the back wall there. The sofa was more pushed forward. And we decided to paint that wall out in that really deep, dark grey, kind of almost charcoal colour. And we've built the desk function into the wall with the shelving above it. Everything's colour then matched into the wall, so that when you're actually done for the day, it kind of recedes away. It stops becoming that workspace and just becomes a backdrop to the rest of your living space, which I think is really important when you need to be able to close the worktop and kind of get back to your normal life. Another really good example of that's the bottom right image, where you'll see that leaning shelving unit, which has actually got the desk kind of built into it. And as you see it here, it doesn't even have, we don't even show it with the chair up against it. It's a desk space, which when it's not being used, just looks like a lovely piece of furniture. It coordinates with the media unit. It's been styled very similarly to the gallery wall with the artwork and the plants and so on it. And you could imagine someone just pulling a chair across from the dining area, sitting, opening up their laptop and working. And I think that's really key. You know, gone are the times where you need the big hard drives and all of the equipment. You can work just from a laptop. You can kind of throw that open. You don't necessarily need a massive big setup to be able to work from home. And the two other images there, they're kind of showing you how you can get that work from home function, maybe in a bedroom or a smaller secondary space. So, you know, but it doesn't necessarily need to be like a big bureau or a massive desk. They could be quite delicate, so they don't drown the room and take over. They can be those functions that can kind of flex between being a storage or a guest space, but also can be that proper work from home function if you need it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned about sort of having the separation, and at the end of the day, you know, for me personally, you know, the first couple of months of working from home, I was on my dining table in my lounge, and of course, you know, there's no separation. You are living, you're working, you're breathing, you know, you've got your day, your morning, your evening, all in one space. So actually to separate that and feel like you kind of finished for the day and you've moved on, I think it's really important for a lot of people as well.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, we're talking about making the most of extra space. So, you know, talking about working from home to kind of living from home, and some places you've got a little bit of extra space, and some places you're tight on space. So talk us through what you've done here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes it's about rethinking the space that you live in to try and maximize the space that you have. So the two right images here, the number 3 and 4, they're kind of talking about how we did a slightly different solution for the dining to maximize the amount of space that you have and create much better circulation through the area. Again, two very different looks and feels, but very much the same function. So the top image is actually one of your developments at the Gauge, and it was a 1-bedroom apartment. And rather than kind of sacrificing the dining function, because it was a, you know, open plan living, we created this fab media unit, which runs all the way along. You've got all of that storage as well that you're gaining into it. And then we just added the seat pad onto the end next to where we put the table, and the seat pad fixed to the wall. And it just created, I mean, a 4-seater in a 1-bedroom apartment, which I think is a really great solution. And it's kind of a fun, funky, nice, useful way of, you know, dining in that space as well. And then the same function, but then carried out quite differently in the bottom image, which is also one of your show homes. At Mosaics in Oxford. So this was a kind of much more luxury version, a proper built-in upholstered banquette seat, which was made to fit wall to wall within that recess by the end of the kitchen. And it was an open plan space again, which had, you had like a secondary luxury kind of living room, but this was the family room. This was with the dining and the seating area and the kitchen. And this just meant that there was a lot more flow, a lot more circulation between the dining function and the seating area. If that had been a dining table, a typical dining table with chairs all the way around it, you then need to be able to walk around the back of all of the chairs, and that immediately thrusts the table out further into the room, and it kind of compromised the other half of the space. Whereas this still feels really generous, feels like a really lovely entertaining space. You're not sacrificed anything really, but you've gained a lot by just rethinking how to repurpose that environment. So they're kind of talking about maximizing the space that you have. And there's a couple of other examples here. The number 1 is a bit of a one-off unusual space. I'm thinking we don't all have the luxury of this in our homes, but it's a great example. It's a very kind of high-end apartment conversion, a very large apartment. It was an old chapel, and it had this kind of big mezzanine floor, and large living space, but underneath the mezzanine, there was no natural light. There was nothing that you could really kind of do with that space. And I think initially the idea was that it was just going to be closed off and used for storage. And of course that, you know, it's a fairly good sized room, but it was like, what do we use that for? So we kind of had discussions with the developer, and the idea of actually using it as a screen room, like as a private kind of cinema space, came up. And it had that lovely big curved wall, which was part of the original architecture of the building. And again, rather than just thinking about sticking a couple of armchairs in there, we designed this sort of bespoke seat that literally fitted into that beautiful curve. But it's bed depth. I mean, it's completely, I mean, kind of, we joke about the fact that the chances of us actually seeing a whole movie, I think I'd be asleep within about 5 minutes if I tried to watch a movie in here. Yeah, but it's a great, you know, it's a really good environment, and it was a great way of maximizing, you know, a space that potentially was just going to be a dead area. And then lastly, we've just got this image on the bottom left here, which again is just kind of rethinking about how you furnish a space. I think we all have, or hopefully if you're lucky enough, we have guest rooms that people come to stay. And actually, when you think about how guests stay in your home, they're only really there for a couple of days, so they don't necessarily need a big heavy piece of furniture that's a, you know, big chest of drawers or a big wardrobe. You can get away with something much more lightweight, much more flexible, that gives you an opportunity to kind of rethink how the functions work in that guest room. So a cool little rail that you can hang up a couple of pieces of clothing, the screen, and the shelving there with the baskets that you can have, you know, extra bedding and so on, and works really well.
Yeah, it's really clever ways to use space and them out in terms of the two show homes and like the 3 and 4. They use them maximize space, and so many comment on that. Really great idea.
I don't know if it's just me, but you were sounding really funny then. I don't know if that was just me.
Same here.
Oh, my sound on.
Yeah, there's like a weird reverberation on your voice.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
So do you want to jump into this one then, Jess? So this was kind of looking at make the most of the space, but in maybe more the outside spaces.
Yeah, so with lockdown, if you're lucky enough to have an outside space, what basically people have been utilising that space more and more. So especially with the gorgeous summer we had last year, everyone was trying to go out. Obviously, you were in lockdown, so you were sort of contained to your garden. So a lot more focus in our day-to-day life has gone into our outside spaces and making the most out of them. And these are 5 examples of sort of outside spaces that we've created in our show homes. So number 1 and number 5 are both sort of winter gardens. So they're like a balcony that you have, some of you may have them, that have almost like a window on the side. So it's sort of that inside to outside, sort of a mix in between. So with these two, we're sort of given them 2 really good functions to really utilize those spaces basically. So number 5 has a bar area looking over the view outside the apartment. And then as you can see, we've also done the chalkboard wall where you can, you know, write all your little cocktail recipes down, and you've got a beautiful display of bottles there. So it's really utilizing that space and giving it another function. And then number 1 is sort of looking at almost like a health space. So you've got your yoga mat. You can imagine yourself going there and doing your morning yoga and waking up to the beautiful sunrise through your view of your window, and then sort of almost like sitting on that comfy chair and like reading a book or writing your diary or something along those lines. And then the other 3 are good examples. Well, I say good examples, obviously we did them, but they're good examples of showing your outside space. And basically on the market, especially now everyone's focus has been on their outside spaces, there's a lot more products now to help furnish your spaces and help make them a lot more comfy and cozy. So there's a lot more sort of like outdoor cushions that you can buy, or, you know, sort of like more like side tables, rugs, and all those sorts of things to really help elevate those spaces. So number 3, as you can see, we've got a mirror outside. I mean, it's an outside mirror, so it's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna rust or anything, but it really helps make that space more cozy and more homely. And then on the other 2, we've also got an outdoor rug. So again, they're not going to go moldy. They're designed to go outside. We'd probably recommend you roll them off over winter and hide them away slightly, but they're sort of designed to go outside, and it really helps soften those spaces and really make them an extra room in your home.
Sounds better.
No, you've gone all Dalek-y. I don't believe it. That's such bad timing. We'll just run it without you there. Don't worry, we'll take over.
So here we have, well, don't dare to be, dare to be bold, basically. So here we have examples of some really sort of like bold wall murals and bold colours on walls. And hopefully you can see by these that even though we're using darker colours and really sort of bold patterns, they're not actually overpowering this in the space, and they actually really help take your room to the next level. So number 1 and number 2 are great examples of like wall-to-wall massive wall murals, which are almost like a piece of artwork in themselves. So as Sarah was saying in the previous run through, it sort of stops you from needing to buy really expensive artwork to cover that whole wall, which can cost thousands of pounds. And this is a great way to sort of, do it on a slightly smaller budget if you have it. And then number 4, again, that's a wall mural that's created like the window effect. So if you could save even more money just by doing a slightly smaller mural and sort of cutting it up and creating that window effect, almost as if you're like looking out to Italy or something. And number 3, you can see here, it's actually like a black wallpaper, almost similar to the mural on number 1. And it's got those really beautiful gold details, and it's a really busy print. But again, you can see with the rest of the furniture, it sort of really helps pull that room together. And without that, it would almost look like quite a sparse space, but it kind of really helps hone it down and really sort of like, ground that space again.
And just to add to that as well, I think the number 4 that we did there, I think one of the things that doesn't often occur to people is how to potentially bring the ceiling into the design. And actually, it's actually quite a subtle color. I mean, it's obviously a fairly strong color, but it's a nice pared back, almost pastel tone. And it's just a way of kind of enclosing the room and giving it a real intimacy. And we've done quite a few schemes recently where we've taken things up onto the ceilings, and it just adds a completely different dynamic to the space. And it's often the area that nobody thinks about. It's the white ceilings or white ceilings. And actually, it's another whole area you can think about when you're styling your home. So poor Sarah, you've just become our finger turner. I'm so sorry. But anyway, the good examples that we've just shown you, they're all fairly generous sized rooms. So I think, what we're conscious of when we talk about being bold is that a lot of people think bold means brash. It means it can be a bit scary. And I appreciate that some of these ideas are maybe a little bit more Marmite. But the first examples we showed you, I think, hopefully you'd agree that they feel quite sophisticated, quite luxurious. And what we're showing you on this page is how you can kind of be bold in maybe slightly more compact spaces. So the top left image, let's just get it out there. I know that that's a bit of a Marmite scheme, the idea of putting stripy paper on your ceiling. But actually, it's kind of one of those things that we sit there and think, when someone says it's a bit Marmite, you either love it or hate it. This is your home. It's up to you what you do with your own home. And if you love it, go for it. Be bold, be brave, embrace your style and the things that you like. And actually that room, even though the ceiling is quite dramatic, the rest of it's fairly calm, and that's a way of making that drama work in a space. You don't have to have something on every surface. But if you do want to make a big statement with something, just pair it with something that just helps calm it down slightly. And it also allows that feature to really sing in the room and kind of stand out. Ways to do things that are really kind of cost effective and very easy. So the middle 2 images that you see there, number 2, number 6, it couldn't be easier than this. This is literally a painted stripe around your room. So doing it from the ceiling coming down, so literally a band that's maybe 1/2 meter, if that, from the ceiling, and you can pick whatever color you like, but you can kind of see how different would that hallway look if all those walls were white. And it's just a way of adding a bit of drama in your entrance hall there, something that just adds a bit of impact and a bit of personality. And the top image, I love how that beautiful canvas kind of cuts across it. It kind of makes a little bit of there's a different kind of dynamic in there, the way that it kind of cuts across the color and plays with the different kind of banding and shapes. So the bottom left image is taking that kind of to the next level, using different bands of different colors. And again, the world is your oyster with this. You could have as many different bands as you like. You can make the different thicknesses. And we generally say, it's something that I say to a lot of friends and people that speak to me about color, is if it's paint, it's really not costing you very much. It's a pot of paint, stick it on the wall, try it out. If you don't like it, paint over it. It's really not the end of the world. But unless you actually go for it, one of the things that actually comes up a lot with when we're working as well, you look at your paint chart and you kind of sometimes bottle it and go for that slightly lighter color. And whenever we've done that, we've always regretted it. Go for the darker color, just embrace it. And then some other ideas on here. So number 4, again, this is another great example that it can be bold, but it can actually be really beautiful and sophisticated and actually quite delicate. This is more of a kind of illustration as a mural wallpaper, again, on the back wall. And it has a really soft, calm feel. It doesn't have to be brash and crazy and hectic to be bold, and just adds a really gorgeous sort of delicate touch to that room. The top right image is a kind of more contemporary version of that. So something much more kind of graphic, quite Matisse-esque. And with a lot of these companies now that do these large murals, you can often specify changing some of the colorways as well within them, so that, you know, you can make sure if that leaf pattern was something that you wanted in a different color, then they can often do that, especially with the more graphic prints. It's very easy for them to adjust it. And then finally on this page, we've got the toilet. And this is one of those things that if you have a guest loo in your house, it's pretty much the one thing that all of your guests are going to use when they come to stay. And they are often some of the most boring spaces, and they don't need to be. You're not spending a huge amount of time in here. And actually, you can just slap a really cool, fun, funky wallpaper up on the wall, and it has so much impact, and might even put a smile on one of your guests' faces. So why not have a go?
Sorry about the noise.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened. I feel so bad for you. That's awful. So yes, we'll move on to where do we get our ideas. So we work with Sarah and the team at Hill a lot, and I think what Sarah wanted us to touch on was, it's all well and good when it's a design company who's been doing this for a long time, that, you know, where if it's you and you're a resident, you want to think about things for your own home, where do you get your ideas from, and how do we do it? So I mean, I've been old school, so I've been doing this for a while, and we always started with magazines and tear sheets. So I've got a couple of examples here: World of Interiors, Elle Decoration, just a couple of really good interior design magazines. And we used to literally just flick through, and anything we loved, you just rip it out and you'd start kind of compiling boards with different ideas. But the modern world has provided us with Pinterest, and it is basically like the biggest online magazine you could ever want. So actually, you can follow the magazine brands, they'll be on there. You can follow designers, you can follow not just interior designers, but you can follow fashion designers, you can follow anyone you want. And it's amazing where you can get your inspiration from. But actually, fashion's a really key point with this. I think we often see the trends that you see in fashion and on the catwalk kind of coming through into the interiors world. So follow your favorite fashion designers, and you may well get inspired by colors or fabric colors or different patterns or different styles of materials, and that can kind of transfer into your home ideas. But what I would say is, if you start creating your own boards on Pinterest, you just start saving things down that you love and kind of stick them into different areas, you will start seeing a trend of something that you like. It might be a color, it might be a pattern, it might be a timber finish, it might be a style of furniture. And before you know it, things will start to come together. You might have to decide everything works apart from that, so that's got to go, and that's fine. It's okay to get rid of stuff, but just, you know, start following the thread of what you're putting together. Things to look out for: Instagram accounts obviously are great as well. We have an Instagram account, and we put everything up there that we work on. And if you can follow anyone you like on Instagram, you'll get exactly the same kind of inspiration that you get with Pinterest. And a couple of big exhibitions that happen every year. The Paris show, Maison Objet, is a great introduction to sort of new ideas, new products, new trends, as is the Milan show. And you often see, that's kind of where you see the stuff coming from the fashion shows first, and then it starts to come out into the kind of high street brands. So again, you can follow them on Pinterest and Instagram, so you don't even have to go to the shows, and you can see a lot of the things that they're kind of exhibiting. And then that takes us into, I'm doing Sarah's bit, it's okay. And that takes us into the Davenport Villa, which is the most recent show home we've done for Hill at Mosaics. Jess did the scheme for this, so Jess is going to talk you through where we got the inspiration for this particular scheme and sort of taking on board the things that I've just sort of mentioned. So over to you, Jess.
Yeah, so when we're designing a show home, our first port of call is to really hone down on who are going to be using these spaces, and, you know, the way that they'll be using these homes and the different rooms. So Davenport at Mosaics is a really generous, huge 5-bed house. So we're assuming a large family is going to be living here. And for this particular one, we've done a slightly older family with teenage children who are potentially going to be at the university there. And with a location like that, it's sort of in the countryside / city. So especially when I was doing the installation, there are a lot of dog walkers. So these people might have a dog, they might go to the museums, as I said, they go to the university and so on and such forth. So we really think about who are going to be using these spaces and who are going to be buying these homes. And then for the colour palette, for this particular one, we started with this really deep heritage navy blue colour, which is really on trend right now. And actually heritage colours tend to stay in fashion a bit longer anyway, because they're base colours that we always base everything from. So we've sort of toned those with these beautiful brassy tones that sort of like really help elevate that design. And then warmed it up with some wood timbers coming through, and then this beautiful warm blush family sort of colour coming in. I would say that if you're worried about a colour palette, this is actually a great sort of board to try out yourself if you're thinking about different colours together, just to sort of put them all together and see how they work. And it really helps you, and you can sort of really experiment with different things and see what works there. So this is the Davenport show home. So inside we've got the befores and afters here. So this is actually the really large entertaining space, which is a huge family kitchen dining room. So really gorgeous space here. At the top you can see we've actually got the navy blue already on the walls in both of these shots, and it's a great way to show you that even though it's a really deep blue, because these rooms are so large and we've got so many windows, that whole back wall is almost glazing, it really isn't an overpowering colour. And with all that light coming in, we've got the ceiling that's white, the floor that's quite light, it really helps deepen, give a real deep texture to this space. And also, as you can see, it looks so different when the furniture's in. So I would really press that, if you're worried about a bold colour, to really follow through with it, because you can see how different they look before and after with all the soft furnishings and furniture in these spaces. The top one on the right hand side, you can see we've actually put a TV almost in a gallery, and this is a great way to almost hide that black box that's on your wall that can be quite an eyesore. So it really helps soften that wall, and you can add real personality to these, with pictures of your dogs, your family, little piece of artwork that you click and collect, that you collect as you're going around. Yeah, so you can really see sort of like how it helps really when you follow through. So top here, this is a really great example of how you sort of start with a blank canvas and how it can look when you've got all your wall murals and your colours in a space. So the top one, you've got that really beautiful wall mural which wraps around, which I spoke about earlier, and that sort of like wraps around the whole way of that side of the room and creates a real beautiful focal point as you walk in. And then we've paired, so we've sort of pulled that room around the room with the little artwork pieces, so the mounts to the frames, we've got it in the ties to the windows, the dressing to the desk, and also the desk chair there. And so it really helps sort of like tie that whole space in together. Sorry. And then the bottom one, we've got the wallpaper on all walls. So you can really see here how that wallpaper on all the walls really helps make that space a lot more sort of like comfortable, and it sort of like really sort of like helps it pull it in a little bit with what would have been a really open, large, empty space before. And here, as obviously we've been talking about, don't dare to be, dare to be bold. So this is a great example of how that wallpaper on all walls really works, works really, really well. And then we sort of paired that with all these sort of like lovely, beautiful cream and white soft furnishings in this room. So it really doesn't feel overpowering at all. It's a really lovely, warm, comfy space when you're in there.
And I think it's one of those things, isn't it? If you'd only put the wallpaper on one wall in there, it just wouldn't have had the same effect at all. It kind of creates almost like a cocoon space, it doesn't lose you don't lose the size of it, but it just makes it such a more comfortable space to hang out in. And the great thing about new build properties is that, all of the work's been done for you, and you get this blank canvas, which I know is a bit intimidating, but that's why it's so wonderful to, anyone can have any design they want in their home in these environments. You're not kind of held back by the environment at all. You can just go for it.
Yeah. So top here, we have a bedroom 2 in the show home. So as you can see, this is a really long it sort of looks quite narrow in that space, but as soon as you put that furniture in, we've got a king size bed there, and you can see that actually that makes the whole room feel a lot bigger. And that's one thing, in all my years of doing interior design, I always walk into a space and I'm always like, oh my god, I'm not going to fit all my furniture in here. But as soon as you start actually putting your furniture in and using the spaces you would walk around it, it really does help open it up, and it always is a lot bigger in reality than you expect it to be. And this is a great example as well of that really deep bright blue color. And if that wasn't on that wall, that space would have been quite sparse and bland, but having that deep backdrop just really helps bring that room up again. And then at bottom, we have the master bedroom, which has this really beautiful, delicate wall mural the whole way across that wall, creating that massive piece of artwork behind the bed. And in this room, it's also worth noting, so we've spoken about wall murals and walls and ceilings, but actually this one also has a really large, beautiful patterned rug. So, if you have, if you don't want to paint your ceiling, but you want something similar, a rug with really bold colours is a really great way to almost add a piece of artwork to your floor as well.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, well, no, so maybe you should try. I mean, that's kind of like going through the different subjects that we wanted to cover, and we've obviously taken you through the Davenport show home as well. So maybe you were going to try and ask some questions, weren't you, that people have been sending in. So I don't know if you're...
Is it working?
Oh, it's better. Yeah, no, it is.
Excellent.
Yeah. A little bit of a crackle, but we can hear you, so go for it.
I'd like to challenge you. Yes, there's a couple of questions that have come in. I do apologise for the problem with the sound.
It's crazy. We did a kind of test run, and it was fine, wasn't it? So whatever. Go with the flow.
So we've got Erica's asking, I have low ceilings and not much wall space. Can I still be bold with colour?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should ever be restricted. I mean, I would argue that if you have a small space with no windows, you could still paint it black if you wanted to. It's about how you light the space, it's very much about that. But obviously, if you want to be a bit more careful, you don't have to have, it's not just about your walls and your ceilings. As Jess has just mentioned, you could do an amazing, beautiful, decorative rug in a space, and that could actually add the colour, that could add the impact to the space. You could keep all your walls neutral and have a really bright coloured sofa or armchair or something else in that space to add the personality. So it's never about one solution, for each of these environments. What we're trying to do is kind of say, think about all of it and then decide which is the one that you're going to hang your hat on. So you don't necessarily want to do all of it. You don't want a stripy ceiling with a bright red sofa and a Matisse rug. It's like you don't necessarily want.
You might do.
You might do, and if you do, then go for it. But it's just.
That answers a few questions, because I think there's a few people coming in with questions about sort of, there's one question here from Sandra saying, apart from painting / wallpapering walls and ceilings, what's the best way to bring colour into a room design?
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of answers that as well. Like I say, it can be in your textiles. You could be in your curtains. I mean, we've done a scheme where we did beautiful decorative, patterned curtains, but everything else in the room was fairly pared back, and they were a real statement in the space. You can do things by, it's not a fad or a trick. You can have big mirrors in these spaces as well, and they can reflect a lot of the light around. So that also works. But the reason we kind of concentrated on wallpapers and paint colors today was a cost thing. It's like you don't generally want to you don't want to take those big risks with the big costs. So
unless you're confident,
unless you're confident, and if you're happy with it, go for it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. But, if you want a red kitchen and it's going to cost you 15 grand, if you suddenly don't like it, that's a problem. But if you want to paint a wall that colour and it's going to cost you 40 quid for a tin of paint, it's a much less risk, isn't it? So we kind of encourage that. And then once you've built up your confidence, then go for it.
I've got another one here from Courtney saying, is there such a thing as current trend in interior design?
It's the question we get asked all the time. What is the current trend? There are trends, like I said, with the exhibitions and things that we go and see. You do see things filtering through. We saw, a few years back, everything was about greenery. And as you can see from my backdrop and from Jess's backdrop and even yours with the planting is everywhere, and that's been around for a really long time. I don't think that's going anywhere. I think it's exactly. it's a timeless solution, but it's something that kind of really reared its head probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's something that's gone into wallpapers, into fabrics, into upholstery, into accessorization. There's a lot of really good fake plants as well that, you know, dare I say it, Jess will probably shoot me because she loves her real plants. But yeah, and I think, you know, yes, you can see things emerging, but at the end of the day, it's your home. So if you like it, just go with it. You know, trends come and go, and you've got to live in this space for as long as you know, as you are, and you've got to love it. So who cares if red isn't on trend? If you like it, make it work. And that's where Pinterest is great, because if you're a bit nervous, red, I keep saying using the word red, it can be kind of an abrasive color. But if you looked up red interiors on Pinterest, you'll find such a huge variety. And you can go for the really bold, crazy ones, or you can go for the ones that make it much more tailored and soft and delicate. So yeah, anything for anyone as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Patrick has asked, he's recently bought a 2-bedroom apartment and he's got no experience with interior design. Would you suggest we do it ourselves or consider hiring professionals?
Oh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? We don't actually work with individuals, so I could quite easily say, nah, don't bother. But I mean, I guess what I would say is if you really, really feel out of depth on it, then of course there's professionals out there, as you would if you were doing, you know, we want someone to landscape your garden or speak to an architect. So absolutely, there's people out there. What I would say is it's quite hard sometimes to be able to tell that person what you want if you don't know. So I think it's useful to kind of, that whole idea of going onto Pinterest and just pulling things together, I would do that first. And if after you've done that, you've just feel like your brain's exploded on screen and there's nothing, you do not know what to make of it, then by all means, see if you can find someone to help you kind of pick out the bits that go together. And that's what the skill, you know, as interior designer, that's what we seem to have the kind of brain ability to do that.
And I think it's interesting because I'm currently going through a bit of a renovation myself, and it is daunting because I'm not an interior designer, I don't know. But equally, you know, it's finding that piece. For me, it was about finding a piece that I really loved and then kind of growing from that. So I think, you know, from personal experience, I wouldn't be afraid to try it yourself. You know.
And start small. You don't have to do all of it at once. I think if you're doing a whole house renovation, that's really intimidating. And I mean, I speak for myself, you know, I do it for other people all the time, but it's really hard to make those final decisions for your own space. So pick one room, just deal with one thing at a time. And then if you love that room, that will probably inspire you for the next space and make you feel maybe a bit more confident. And then by the time you've got to the end, you'll probably start again, because then by then you'll be like, it'll be the
ready to start from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we got time for one more question.
Okay.
Anonymous here says, can we go dark on walls in a north-facing room?
Again, you know, I guess you wouldn't necessarily recommend that. It depends on how you light it. So if you've got the flexibility, you can, you know, you put the extra lighting in to be able to compensate for it. It can make it very moody and intimate. But if you want your room to feel light and you've got a north-facing room, chances are you probably want to keep it fairly pared back. And again, you know, maybe embrace some extra mirrors to reflect some of that light through, and add the color in different ways. But I don't know. I mean, I'm like I said, you know, we've done bathrooms which have got no windows in, and we've tiled them in charcoal tiles and painted the walls black. And as long as it's lit, it can look stunning.
Agreed. That's all we've got time for in terms of questions. If you've got any other questions, please do feel free to email us at webinars@hill.co.uk. You can obviously follow us at Created by Hill. They've got the Pinterest for Suna Interior Designs and their Instagram page here as well if you want to follow them. But thank you very, very much for watching. And I want to say thank you so much to Helen and Jessica for filling in my technical disastrous. But thank you so much. It was been a pleasure, and we will see you all soon.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.